Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
Hello, League of Legends fans. Welcome to the All In podcast. League Dad is not here. It's just going to be us three today. Fortunately, he's a little sick. But yeah, it's Mitchell, Alistair, and Kevin, and we're going to talk about some League of Legends this weekend. Woo! So how you doing, Alistair? How's life?
Not much change. It's been pretty good. I went to the gym twice today, so I'm very tired and very sore. But
Wow.
Oh wow.
What'd you hit?
yes,
Yes? Okay, cool.
everything. I
You're
did
gonna be-
everything.
Everything. That is, full bodies are always intense. That's good to hear, though. Hopefully, you'll be looking like a set sometime soon. We could do some push-ups on the podcast. Or how about you, Kevin? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm currently planning a trip with my friends to the LCS finals in Chicago. We're trying to figure out like tickets and how to stay because two of our friends already live in Chicago, so it'll be nice. I'm excited. Haven't been to an LCS finals since the Toronto one, so I have high expectations. I hope my team will at least be in the top three, so I can see them one of the 2 days.
Yeah, I hope so. That's really awesome. Yeah, I've never been to a finals either, but Worlds is happening in San Francisco at least, so maybe we can all meet up there, meet some fans, have a little mini podcast. That would be cool. But yeah, I hope you get to go to Chicago. Me, I don't know. We don't have to talk too much about me. Just doing boot camp stuff. Also, um, just I don't know, sitting around in Seattle and doing some hikes. So that's pretty much life. But yeah, let's talk about the games. So to start off, we had a pretty wild weekend, right? We had TL getting upset. We had CLG uh, going 2-0, I think,
No,
or they
they
lost
dropped
one,
their
or
first
they,
game to
1-1.
FlyQuest.
they dropped their first game to fly. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right, right. And then they had a really great win on their second day. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun stuff, a lot of upsets, a lot of unexpected events. But let's talk about CLG first thing. I'm just going to bring up the question that everybody's asking. Are they legit?
I think
It's
for my
early season.
It is early
It's-
season.
it is
But
early season, but I mean they lost the first game. That's the problem, right? Like it's such a big deal that they beat the undefeated team, but then they lost to FlyQuest, right? So it's hard to tell. And honestly, I didn't feel like they were going to win that EG game until they did. It felt like it was a very close game, which honestly, I'll give them credit, right? A win's a win.
yeah, a win's a win, but it's also a win in a very close game against a really good team. I think normally we'd expect CLG. We've seen CLG in the past when they're really bad have these really close early games and even close mid games, but they're never actually able to close it out. It's a big deal to be able to close it out against a top team. When it definitely felt like they were in a very losing position in that last base defense.
Yeah,
So,
I mean to be fair, I don't think
um,
I don't think I've ever seen Impact get gapped as hard as he did.
yeah,
He almost got double Flame Horizoned.
Oh, that's pretty
Like,
rough. That's pretty rough.
yeah, that's rough.
It is against the Gwen. That's good farming, but his build was terrible. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see Impact's build, but he built Seraph's Embrace
it's
Morellos,
questionable.
and he just
And Demonic,
kind of just did
Night
negative
Harvester,
damage.
Hourglass.
Demonic. Oh my god, that is just the worst 6-item build you could possibly come up with.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, to answer the question, I'm gonna have to see more from CLG, mainly because like obviously beating EG is good. They've been 4-0, but at the same time, we saw it last split, right? EG didn't. They were coming in like what, fourth or fifth. So their kind of history with this team is to not sweat during regular season, and they've on EG they lost to FlyQuest, and then they've beaten Golden Guardians, TSM, and Dignitas. So 3 teams that aren't predicted to be amazing, like pretty like middle of the pack ish teams, and they lost to Team Liquid and then beat EG, who we kind of know for funds it a little bit. So I'm hesitant to say they're legit, but I think it's possible.
Fair.
Got two
fair.
takes for that.
Mhm.
So one, I think CLG might be like LEC's XL. They both went to the boot camp in Korea. They both come back and suddenly like bottomish looking teams looking a lot better. I will say to their credit that EG only lost like for fun or lost to like the top teams for the most part who are the regular
That's
season.
true.
So if EG loses to CLG, I mean this might sound super stupid later on, but maybe they just lost to a top team or a team higher ranked than them, right? Not even a top team. It could just be fifth or fourth or whatever. You'll be a higher rank than EG's last season. So I'll give him credit. I actually do think Dokla is like playing really legit. I think that he might not even be like mechanically a god or anything per se, but like he just has the right idea. When he's playing the game, he's pushing the tempo, he's not scared to make plays, and he's playing aggressive characters, which like Krish, I think was the last NA top I could think of, native NA top that like did that. And then like most NA tops just are not good at that kind of play style.
Yeah.
Like they can pick Jace, but I'll never be happy about it. So I think this like Dopa's a big upgrade for them. Like Jenkins wasn't terrible, but he wasn't doing anything. So in the context of a team that wants to compete, that is bad.
Yeah, I do think that Dokla has been surprisingly good considering his last showing was in 2016 on Optic, I think. Someone pointed
Yeah.
out on the internet somewhere that I saw that that roster also started like 4-0 or something, or like 5-1 or something, also to a hot start. And then you kind of saw them peter off into like sixth place, right? Or fifth or sixth or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's still early on. A lot of teams are still getting their groove. They haven't actually played 100 Thieves, TL, or Cloud9 yet, I think.
CLG
Um,
or EG?
CLG.
CLG lost to TL. Or sorry, no, that was
No,
no, my bad.
they
My
lost
bad.
to FlyQuest.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
I'm an
yeah.
idiot.
So they still have yet to play actually the majority of the top teams. So I think that once we see those, most of the fans are going to be able to actually form an opinion. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just this org has been bad for so long. So many of the players are unproven. And for me, especially Contracts is like a very suspicious character of a player. Like sometimes he does well, he has streaks where he does well, like his time now as well, but if you just literally go back a couple months ago, he was running it down every game. So, I mean, it's good to
Mm-hmm.
see that this player who's like kind of the original Blabber doing well, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's still to be determined. We can go into maybe the games a bit more later, but let's talk about the next surprising thing. I guess kind of juxtapose TSM and then Team Liquid. So, what are your thoughts on TSM, guys?
I think TSM had a pretty good showing this week. I mean, obviously, right? If they beat the team I think is really good, they're really good. Which, if you haven't watched the games yet, TSM did beat Liquid and in a pretty convincing fashion. I have to give them credit for that. Like it was just they played well. But then they lost to Golden Guardian, so like it's kind of what I expected. I think Huni is still kind of an interdog most of the time. Like it it's hard to have faith in him, but I think Maple has proven to be legit, which is a good sign for them. Like I was slightly worried about them coming in, but now I'm not so worried anymore. I think they're just decent.
Honestly, not much. My opinion has not changed much on TSM solely because of the fact that the draft. You look at that draft and you turn nameplates off. You're just TSM wins. I don't see a way that Team Liquid wins this game aside from pure skill checking. They're not going to outpoke them because Ezreal's not going to outpoke Zoe. And then like I guess you could Azir, but whatever. And then they have Viego, one of the most broken champions in the game. They have better team fighting. They have better side laning. Like arguably the game's played around bot lane right now, which is pretty common. And your bot lane matchup, you have Kalista Renata, which is one of the strongest bot lanes in the game, against Ezreal Bard, which isn't even a real lane. So it's like I don't
Yeah.
see a way for TL to win that aside from just pure skill check. So I mean, good for TSM for winning, but I think TL's draft was a bigger issue on why they lost. Obviously, TL didn't play
Yeah.
perfect,
I
but I would still say like I'm not sold.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. Actually, I want to harp on the point. TL played far from perfect, actually. What I would
For sure.
say is that their bot lane was like a massive issue. Core JJ got completely support gapped. I mean, props to Mia. He probably played the best in that game overall in general. He has some crazy Renata plays. But
Those
Core
are not ultra
JJ,
insanity.
yeah, his Renata ults are insane. His flash Renata ult, his coordination with Kalista ultis to actually jump in there was pretty crazy. But Core JJ, I mean, just dying early on in a super weird way, right?
Why are they playing Bard?
Exhausting, getting it cleansed. I don't know. I don't know
They
why
did
they're
well
playing
last
Bard.
week, so they probably were just like, "This is fun. It's
It
aggressive."
had it literally
I
just
don't know.
has
It's
to
good
be
for
ego
roaming.
from scrims, right? That has to be what it is.
Yeah. It could be that. I mean, regardless, right? I still think that they could have won if they executed a couple of their plays. Because you saw how many times did Core JJ actually miss a Cosmic Binding on someone who's slowed or stationary or basically stunned. The play I want to highlight in particular is when the three-man of Volibear, Ezreal, Bard, they dove bot lane, and Volibear and Bard ulted the tower at the same time. And then J missed his cosmic binding on a stunned target. Volibear stunned it and he whiffed it. And I was just baffled. So that was really weird to see. Also, I mean the draft is like you R fight Olaf into Gnar, and that's like one of the few matchups that Olaf doesn't completely curb stomp because it's not a melee matchup. Olaf curb stomps melee matchups in top lane, but Gnar is obviously one that gets the lane for free, so that was pretty disappointing to see. Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of have to agree that the draft was really weird from TL. What are your thoughts? So this is something I want to talk about. Just like TL is, still one of our top teams, and a lot of the conversation I think can be built around them. So we didn't have Alistair on the last podcast, and they kind of brought out this philosophy of saying, "Hey, we're just gonna focus on playing strong side bot, weak side top." And then there was an additional interview where Bwipo said himself that he was gonna be like this juggernaut top. So what are your thoughts on the development of this sort of philosophy? Because I got a lot of thoughts on it, and we didn't really get Alistair's last week.
Um, there's a lot to that, honestly. I won't be able to
Yeah.
answer all of it because I can't. I mean, off the top, I can't really think of the best answer. What I would say is I don't think it's a terrible idea. They do have a fairly consistent bot lane most of the time, and we have seen what Whippo can do in a side lane, how good he is, or sorry, a weak side, and how good he can be at it. However, I do think locking yourself into a form of style like that is a mistake. So I think it can be good, but you also have to watch out because if he's just said it in an interview, we're not the only ones who heard it. So
Yeah.
they're just gonna throw more resources. If that's the case, they could just throw more and more resources at their top laner and just try and blast Whippo because as as strong as one side lane is that gets ahead, the other side lane get just as strong, carry just as hard if they're good, right? So you have to play it well and consistent.
Yeah, definitely do. Any developing thoughts, Kevin, from the next week?
I think everyone can have a bad week. You
Yeah.
have a bad scrim read on the meta, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is, like, Liquid didn't just look bad in the TSM game, which was like, yes, bad draft, right? And Mia played out of his mind. I think Mia played incredibly well, along with Maple and Spica, for that matter. But their second game, they also played pretty poorly. Like, they won, but they only won because, like, they're just much better players, honestly. And, like, Core DJ had, like, a really good disruptive Rakan engage using Lulual and stuff like that. Sure, like, all this stuff was good, but, like, why were they in the position where they had to, like, rely on the other team to just be bad around Baron and just, like, take a full GP all into, like, an ideal engage? I think that, as with any regular season, like, there's never been an undefeated split in NA. Like, no matter how good you are as a team, like, if you're trying to actually be a good team at Worlds, you should be using the regular season to investigate and learn. And it's good that, like, they're trying to learn something Whether they'll actually gain lessons from it and like adapt, I have no idea. So all I can tell you is like last week was not this. Yeah, the last week was not it, and they clearly, if they can't figure that out, then I can't have faith in them. But it's been 2 games, and they did manage to win a game that looked unwinnable for them, which is like something that you see a lot of very good LPL teams do. And it's not a mark of being a bad team to be able to do that. This means like you can identify weaknesses and go for it instead of just bleeding out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good they won. Obviously, it just doesn't look good. Yeah, this weekend was a pretty bad look for Team Liquid. I do think that like focusing on bot lane, especially in this meta, is like it's fine, right? And then if you say stuff in interviews, doesn't mean you actually have to do that, right?
That's
Because
true.
we saw the very next day that Bwipo played his first non-Juggernaut champion. He played GP. So I mean, whatever, right? And he still has other champions that he can bring out, like Ornn and Graves and whatever. But I do think that the bot lane focus is totally fine in my opinion, and that I hope that if the meta shifts completely away, which I just don't think it's going to happen, that they can shift with it. But I mean, I think Kevin, you said this last week on the podcast, right? Like sometimes the team who wins worlds or who goes far at worlds, they're not even very good of a team. They're just incredibly good at a meta, and then they get lucky. We actually see this
Yep.
happen all the time, where it's
All
just
the
one
time.
team just happens to coincide with a meta. They're like coming in as like a third seed or second seed from an Asian team, and they just make it. They just make it all the way, right? So, yeah, we'll see if that happens. I do think though the tunneling on Juggernauts in the top side, I started to find its flaws and how bad the idea can be if you don't know how to draft around it. Because I think in the TSM draft, they drafted so much magic damage in their 4 champions that they were forced to go Olaf into Gnar. Terrible, just not a great matchup, right? Olaf kind of just
Mm-hmm.
gets outscaled and doesn't get to bully a lane. And the best thing would have been if he went Swain top, but his team had too much magic damage. So I like that they went to GP in the FlyQuest game. Um, but yeah, I mean, if your strategy is just bot lane focus and your bot lane doesn't play very well, Hansama's arcane shifting forward and then dying after,
Mm-hmm.
Core JJ is whiffing everything. It can look really bad. So they just have to hope that Hansama and Core JJ don't have any more of those stinker games. So yeah, I mean, still a good team, still a great team, but the cracks are showing pretty early already. So it's a little nerve wracking. It's like, yeah, I mean, most people are still gonna think they're probably gonna go to Worlds and be up there, but I think a lot of people are hedging their bets when considering them being the best team or winning the whole split. This split. So yeah, that's Team Liquid. I guess we can move on to Cloud9. Cloud9 was they finally got their roster together. I think a lot of us were worried that maybe they wouldn't get Berserker and Zved in time before it was too late, right? Um, Maybe you drop too many games and then you don't have enough time to synergize, and all of a sudden, you're halfway through the split. But now, week 2, they go 2-0. Not exactly the cleanest of games. What are your guys' thoughts on Cloud9?
I feel bad for 100 Thieves. That's what my thoughts are. I'll go more into Cloud9 stuff, but real quick, we were saying like 100 Thieves was on the periphery, right? And the only saving grace for 100 Thieves was like maybe Cloud9 just won't gel. Maybe Zen just sucks as support. I think like for a first week, like they've had less than like a full week to scrim and just practice together. I think they looked reasonably good. Like 100 Thieves is not a pushover team, right? It's still a test of some sort. And like you saw, like Jensen won a game on Yone. Like that's might say more about how bad Abadage has been playing,
Oh,
but
Abadag is the worst
Dude,
mid in
yikes.
LCS right now.
Oh my
yeah,
god.
and his last split was like kind of like historically bad as well. Like in recent era LCS after franchise, it's hard to think of a mid laner on any of the not even just top teams, just any team that's been like performing that consistently bad. He was getting solo killed by JoJo when JoJo was just debuting. And like JoJo wasn't like bad at the debut, but he was nowhere near as good as he is right now, right? So when do we start talking about Abadaga just being terrible? Anyways, back to C9. I think it's good news that they 2-0'd. They need that. Like even though the team can still develop and grow the same way they normally do, a 2-0 when you just start off with a new roster and they just switch in, like, is a big mental start. Like it's a great start. I don't think they looked perfect per se, but honestly, it didn't look like the opponents put up well, especially Under Thieves, didn't put up that much of a fight. So I'm happy for them. We have another top 3 competitor. They should be like a 4-1 team or even a 5-0, but probably like a 4-1 team anyways. Just, Berserker went Mia with his passport. What can you do? Says a lot about his decision making. I'm just kidding.
Out of game at least.
Yeah, out of game decision making.
Yeah, so again, this kind of puts me in another situation where I'm kind of unsure. Just because, again, 100 Thieves, another team who historically isn't the best in regular season necessarily. They usually finish near the top, but that's just because they're better. Like we said, I think Abadage is the worst mid in LCS right now. Especially when it comes to laning, he's lost every single lane, even when he's playing Ari, which is I don't know what to say about that. I do think the Savannah experiment is, or I don't even know if it's an experiment because it's been done before, but I think it's good. I do think they are a good team, and I still stand by what I'm saying, where I think they may finish first in regular season. But it'll be kind of hard to tell because they're on paper their 3 hardest matchups have already been completed, and 2 of them were behind them when they had 2 subs, which is EG and TL because they had that last week. So we kind of have to wait for those matches to come back to really test. But at the same time, they'll have had a month and a half until then to merge and get better as a team. So I think that we are still looking at a top tier team from Cloud9. I suppose maybe, I guess it'll be a good check for CLG and Cloud9 because they play this weekend. So that should be pretty telling on the level of these 2 teams, but I would still favor Cloud9.
Yeah, I had a quick topic. Real quick. I heard on I think it was Summoning Insider, one of the shows, the weekly shows, that Nelson, who's the coach of, I believe, XL right now, was saying that just support players in the West, especially in NA, are just crap. After watching Sven play, do you think, obviously it's just been 2 days, but do you think the average level of support players in LCS is just not that high? Because it's weird, right? A lot of people roast off the support, and they just it's kind of a trend. They look better. Huhi was not a superstar player. He looked better as a support. Even considered top 2 at times. That's nonsense to me personally, compared to someone who's played support all their life. If these guys are good talents, it's kind of weird that they're just getting outshone all the time.
I'll go ahead. Yeah,
I could just say from experience, North American supports in general, no. We have good AD carries. We don't have very good supports. We don't have very good top laners. Our junglers are all right, but our North America's strength is AD carry for sure, and sometimes jungle, depending on who it is. But every other role is pretty weak, and that's what kind of holds us back.
So yeah, I agree a lot on the support role where it feels like support players just are not even really there sometimes, especially in NA. It's the amount of times that when a support player gets caught or they're out of position or they have a really bad engage, and it's a lot of people, they'll give them credit. It's hey, at least they're trying, or oh, one bad mistake. But that's the only thing they have to do in the game. It's that and vision. They don't have to farm, right? They have to lane a bit, but they don't have to worry about farming. Their entire focus is on trading health bars and managing the wave to an extent, but that's mostly up to the ADC, right? And it just seems like supports just in general is by far the easiest role. They have the least amount of stuff to do, and I think that being a bad support player usually means you're just a bad player. You don't have good game sense. You don't have the good knowledge of just how the flow of the game is supposed to be, where you're supposed to be, all that stuff, right? Because every player learns that. Every pro player learns that, and no matter what position they are. So if you're bad at support, I think you're just a bad player. And because it's by far the easiest role. Sven said it in his own interview where he's literally saying you get interviewed by Travis. He's like, I'm playing Lulu, Karma, Tom Kench. These champions are just the most easy brain dead champions in the game. He was saying stuff if he's he better do well, right? Because it's not that hard. In scrims, he's just I don't I don't have to do that much. And I think optimizing support play also, especially with enchanters, very very easy, right? There is some thought process and skill that goes into optimizing when you shield, when you use your CC, and how you position. But compared to all four other roles, like the optimization is quite low. It's like it's just not on the same level. So yeah, I have to agree that if a support looks bad, which sometimes they do in NA, it's not great. Yeah.
A random point too. Remember when Afromove season 2 was an AD carry main, and he switched to support in season 2 or 3? I know
Yeah.
in LCS start he was the support. He suddenly was just the best support in the whole
Yep.
league. Period. Ahead of even people who have known for support like X Special or someone who's I
Or
thought was pretty good.
Chouster or Elements, all
Yeah,
those guys.
Chester.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then even now, Afromove is still around, and you would probably put him in the top 6, right? At least, depending on what team and what week it is. It's kind of crazy, right? It's just crazy that you can maintain that level for that long. Like, it might speak to his talent, but it also speaks to it's not a hard role to maintain, man.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
Especially in Enchanter meta, it's like by far the easiest role. Enchanters are stupidly easy to play. I mean, but I will say I didn't really get to say much about Cloud9. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think like this team definitely mm, they're having trouble with their macro. I can tell that they're having trouble mm, being consistently like making the right macro decisions. But I mean, when 100 Thieves is just gonna chuck things at you and just keep fighting when they have a Zir Senna, like I really felt like draft was doomed for C9 if they didn't get stuff rolling in the early game, right? Like it felt like, I mean, it wasn't doomed because they have GP Zeri, but it was definitely it's a lot harder to execute on those champions when you have such really simple hyperscaling champions like Azir and Senna that they just get to a point where they completely outrange you and you can't interact with them. But 100 Thieves, just flash in on Volibear, just keep out, just jump in on Stomp Catch, just keep fighting, just keep going. Doesn't matter that we have an infinitely scaling champion. So yeah, I think that C9 still needs to be tested. But I mean, this is their first week. Already went 2-0. They clearly have good drafts, right? They're playing Kale, GP, and Fiora, which I think were the best champions in the meta. Berserker comes in, he still looks great. He's playing Senna, he's playing Zeri, so I think the team is on an upward trajectory, and they still have stuff to prove, but I think they get the benefit of the doubt for now. Um, yep, definitely make it into my going to Worlds situation for me. EG
Mm-hmm.
Cloud9, I think, are pretty locked in, and then honestly, once you get past that, it's a little tough, right? TL would be the natural shoe in, but it's looking a little sketch.
It
So
was a really bad week. You're right.
yeah, I do want to talk about let's talk about Immortals. So pretty underwhelming time for Immortals. But we power ranked them 5th and 6th. So I think that we got it pretty wrong. I mean, maybe they have a surge in the back end, but I feel like we do need to talk about this team
Mhm.
and maybe talk about how bad they are and just what's going on with this team, man.
Yeah, they've kind of taken the spot where CLG and them have switched spots. Like our power rankings, I think for the most part were fairly accurate, except for these two. Whereas
Yep.
we thought CLG was dead last, like not no hope in hell, right? I'll say for Immortals, it's got to be a coaching issue at this point, right? Like the caliber of players on this team is not bad. Ignar was like part of a top 3 EG back in the past, or top 4, top 3
Top
EG.
2
Well,
FlyQuest. Yep.
oh, in FlyQuest, yes. And PLE was also on that same FlyQuest. Like these people have been tested. Revenge in a vacuum, Revenge is not a bad player either. Like I don't think he's been playing amazing, but it's like likely because they're just not coordinating well. I don't think Kemby's had a great start, honestly. But again, he's a rookie. If he's not going to be good now, like I will say the one thing I've noticed with any other region except for ours is rookie players generally can, if they're good when they start, they generally become even better. But in our region, we're usually just like give them a chance. Other than like notable people are like Tactical in his first season, Danny recently, and then Jojo Pin, obviously, right? But most of the times we just say like, oh, they'll get better, but they usually don't, or at least not for a while. Like Dokla's come back, maybe he'll be good, but most of the time, like that is kind of where they're at for a long time before they get good. So I hope Kenvi doesn't follow this route, but like if Immortals has this caliber of players on the roster, like this isn't even like a discount roster in my mind. They bought or promoted a really high like prospect. They got Lost and they have Ignar, right? They got Ignar as well. And PoE's there still. It's like these can't be super cheap players in my mind. And yet
Not
they
at
just
all.
like completely look uncoordinated. They don't look like they know what a win con is. Like it's not good. It's really not good. I thought their first week like they showed some like maybe it's just like jitters those first games, but like come on, we can't keep watching this and being like they're on the trajectory for fifth. They can still end fifth, by the way, but like it's just not easy. They couldn't even beat Dignitas, guys.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
what the heck? That game. I don't want to go into it too much because it just pains me, but that game was awful.
They basically got perfect gamed. I mean, but besides a turret and
Yeah.
a dragon, or no, they didn't even get a turret. They got one dragon, and then they got perfect games. That's almost 2 perfect games in 2 weeks. One split, 2 weeks. Yikes, guys.
That has never happened, even for like really bad teams. Like it wasn't Coast. There was a team worse than Coast in the past, like Velocity or whatever they were called.
I don't
Like
know.
their teams like that did not get
Oh,
double perfect
I think
game
it
in
was
the same
Team
split.
Marn. Wasn't Team Marn?
Mario wasn't always bad because they had Nian Tanso for a bit too. Like it was, literally Team Velocity was like 10th place, 2 and 16, and they
Team
didn't
Dragon
get perfect
Knights?
game twice. And their
Was it?
Ooh, that
TDK
team was
was
pretty
also
bad.
bad.
TDK was
that
bad.
team was pretty bad. There was a lot of historically
There-
bad teams in
They
that
were
era.
like TDK was like the next generation. They were like season 3 or something, right? They were
Oh,
all
Winter
good.
Fox.
Oh,
Winter
Winter
Fox.
Fox
That team was
bad.
terrible. Oh, it was
That team
with
was
Poe Belter.
that was a Snoopy, right? Oh yeah, Snoopy and Pobelter. Ooh, that
Snoopy,
was a
Poe
bad.
Belter, and then they had like somebody's brother, like the jungler's brother, just playing top lane as like a Masters
Oh,
player.
didn't they have Maple Story?
Maple Street.
Maple Street,
Street.
right? Maple Street,
Maple
Maple
Story.
Story. The odd one's little brother. He didn't play with shoes on. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, that
He wasn't bad actually, but the top laner was the most boosted player I've ever seen. His name was Paragon, and he
Oh,
was the brother of the jungler who was like some Korean player, and he was just awful.
right. Oh yeah.
Anyways,
There's like
my point is,
Avalon.
Immortals might have a historically bad split at this trajectory. Getting a perfect game almost twice is actually impressive
That's against Dignitas and Jesus.
against Dignitas, especially. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Alistair, on Immortals? Sixth place
Yeah,
team.
I was. Yeah, we may have been wrong on that one. I don't know. I do agree. I think it's got to be a coaching issue because these aren't bad players. I mean, Revenge is really good. I mean, maybe they're just really bad at developing because like Revenge, he's always been on IMT, no? Ever since he got pro.
Yep.
Uh,
He was never on a
Yeah.
pro team.
He didn't choose
besides
to
that.
go to pro until he went on to IMT, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
then Kenvy's a similar story.
Revenge
they're
and
both in
Kenvi
academy for a
are
while.
both like they're like fairly new. Revenge is fairly new, and Kenvi is new to LCS. Like they're both very good. Kenvi was the best jungler in academy. People are saying like this is the guy to watch, and there are people saying like he's one of the best junglers in North America, but also like in the pro scene as well. And seeing this, it's like it feels weird. PoE, I mean, he's not a bad player. I don't remember off the top of my head who's their support. Is it Destiny? Oh,
Ignar.
Ignar. Yeah, Ignar's not
Ignar.
bad. Wild
He's
Turtle.
a really good player.
Wild Turtle's not bad.
Lost.
Lost isn't bad, but like I mean, it's got to be a coaching issue.
Yeah.
Who is the coach of Immortals?
I don't know. It used to be Gilhoto, but that was a while
and then
back.
he left, and then they got worse.
Yeah, and then they
Way
got
worse.
worse.
They dropped to 10th immediately.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I've always been a big PoE fan, but I gotta call it when it is. I mean, I just think PoE's is cashing it in, or he's bad, or he's washed, or he's not playing, because he seems to be playing pretty poorly, and his builds are god awful. Like every week he's got a new build that makes you go, ooh, that just doesn't seem right. That just doesn't
Yeah,
seem
if there's
good.
a mid laner who's worse than Abadage, it's PoE.
Yeah, yeah. PoE
There's
is
a pulse
up
on
there.
PoE at least. He's trying something. I think Abadage is literally funny.
That's why I
the
said
problem.
if
Dude.
there is one, it's PoE.
If there's okay.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
to PoE's credit. I mean, at least he doesn't drag his jungler down. If you guys remember, like Abadagi literally brought closer to sit in his lane like 5 different times for like several minutes just so he could get the shove in, and then Jensen just held the wave anyways. So it's like I like Abadage is like negatively affecting his team, actively sabotaging his own jungler, or at least PoE is just having fun playing. I don't know, build simulator. But like whenever I see someone go Riftmaker voice staff, I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. Like I get it, like void staff is a pretty efficient item, but true damage, void staff, not a lot of magic resistance on the enemy team. It just seems like a bad idea.
He also
Um,
took Conk on Oriana with that Riftmaker Void Staff.
it's like how many autos did he get, man? Like it's only in laning phase against frickin' Silas, right? Only in laning phase. And you know what? They built a single Ma. One Ma of Mortius on the entire enemy team, and he still built Void Staff. It just with Riftmaker, it just doesn't seem right. So yeah, Immortals I think is pretty sad. So let's up the beat up a little bit. FlyQuest. Honestly, they looked like they had a pretty great weekend. Almost went 2-0, facing technically the two first place teams in CLG and Team Liquid. What are you guys' thoughts? I
That's
mean, we,
true.
we thought they would get worse, but they're looking about the same kind of. Philip, I mean, still doesn't look necessarily better or worse than Kumo. But the team overall and the cohesion, the coordination, um, it's definitely not bad. It's definitely it's gonna give top teams a run for their money, like it did for Team Liquid. And if you slack off, they will just beat you. So FlyQuest, what are you guys' thoughts?
I think it's impressive that with a new top laner, they're still able to keep up that level. Tuki, I still think, is quite a good mid laner. Like he just has shown that he has a decent level of class, and they're the only team to beat CLG. So far, it's not a bad sign. I will say like that there was such an egregious throw against Liquid. Like
Yep.
that, me watching that, I'm like, wow, it's like 4 kills to 13. They're down like 5K plus. Like this isn't really winnable in this position, and they found a way. So that is fine. Philip, I don't think was in the right position. He's their rookie, so I can almost give that a pass. So this team, again, I think they're, for better or for worse, they managed to occupy the same spot they had before, where they will test you, and if you're just like not good enough or you just don't have enough coordination, they can just take a game off of you. Uh, they're probably not a huge threat in the best of 5. That's the problem with a team like this, though.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they're missing something small, and I'm not exactly sure what it is because I think the team is very good. They're just not at the caliber of the top 4 teams right now. Now, I'm not including CLG in there because I'm still not fully convinced, but I think like I think they're our 5th best team, but
Yeah,
they're missing something to crack that top 4. I'm not sure exactly what it is.
I would venture they feel like their sixth best team. I still got to put CLG a bit higher than them. I mean, they do just have
They
more
just beat
wins.
CLG though.
But I mean, they did just beat CLG,
But
which is
CLG
great.
just beat EG, so
True.
Yeah, CLG. It's just a lot of like it's hard to compare apples to oranges. But
Mhm.
I mean, FlyQuest. Yeah, I definitely think that. So we said this on the last podcast, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, Alistair. Is Kumo, while definitely not a great laner and definitely not great at playing carry champions, um, when he did play tanks like Sion and Ornn, he kind of filled a niche for FlyQuest where he was just a facilitator. He didn't exactly do well in lane. He definitely fell behind, but when he grouped with his teammates, he did his job. He did what he was meant to be, and maybe that's that kind of aspect that they're missing. But they just need it to take it to another level so that it can be better than what they were last split. But Philip is definitely more of a carry style player. So what are your thoughts on that?
So you're basically like comparing Kumo to like Xmithy type thing, Xmithy Santorin.
Or like impact,
Yeah.
kind of.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying like because Xmithy filled the niche for TL. Like they had 3 carry lanes, and so they need like a super support style jungler in Xmithy, and now Santorin fills that.
Sure. Yeah.
That's just kind of where my head went to first.
Yeah.
I do think it has some merit, and I do think I definitely can see that, though I do think that Philip coming in, I don't know. Do you guys know what his history was? Whether they came through PG or Academy or what?
He was in Academy, and he was considered the worst Academy top laner.
He was
Yeah.
at least in the bottom half as far
Yeah.
as like all accounts, right? Like it didn't seem like he was a superstar, so I don't know why he started.
He's fairly new, so I think FlyQuest they made an announcement saying that they believed in his future and that they,
So they took a risk.
someone gave an interview.
Fair game.
Yeah,
Fair game.
they took a risk. He's a good team player.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair. I mean, if that's the
Mhm.
case, then I would imagine he's probably like, since he's just starting, he's probably like, probably just playing comfort right now, and will learn more Ornn, Scion, Malphite, whatever. That would be my prediction.
Yep.
I think he's like, they're throwing him into this, and they're like, kind of unsure of what's happening, so they're gonna let the game play out, see what happens, and then they're gonna take some more time to scrim on more standard like tank utility picks.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that's that's a valid avenue to go for. It would be nice to see it though, because I mean honestly, tanks are not that hard to play. You can just play a couple games of Ornn, throw it right in there, right, and maybe FlyQuest looks a bit more cohesive, because it does feel like when he plays like his Aatrox is like not looking too bad, and his Camille didn't look too bad, but when he played like the Vlad, it did kind of feel like just kind of useless. But I mean, we didn't see any Vlad this weekend, so yeah, FlyQuest is definitely an interesting team to think about. But then, what else can we talk about? Let's see, Golden Guardians actually. I mean, honestly, not too much to talk about except maybe just Licorice in a vacuum. But holy cow, what a top diff in that one game versus TSM. That was pretty exciting to see. Um, Golden Guardians, I mean, they looked in their first weekend, they looked worse than they did last split, but it seems like they're kind of bringing back their groove a little bit, having some strong early games, and actually being able to close it out against TSM. Any change in Golden Guardians' opinions? Yes, no. Is Licorice back? Is he better? Is he? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I don't necessarily think that Licorice is back by a lot. Like he did get a solo kill. I think he also died soon after though.
He got
Uh,
a 1v2 kill, which is
yeah,
pretty
and
impressive, I
then
thought. Yeah.
the laner came back and just killed him. I'm pretty sure,
Maybe I don't
or is that the
remember.
second game? Either
I
way,
just yeah.
that's fine. I do think Stixay has just been an upgrade for this roster in terms of consistency. Like he looks like he knows how to play AD carry and not be a detriment. Which like sometimes that's just what you need on a team. Like not necessarily the role AD carry. Right now, I think AD carry should be more of the hyper carry. You should probably play more so around them when you can, and the draft makes sense for it. But if you don't have a choice of a good hyper carry, like 6-8 isn't bad. Like he might have had a bad split right before he stopped playing, but that can happen to anyone. Like with a long career, like Double had a really bad split before he stopped playing. To be honest, besides playoffs and like okay, well, worlds we don't even talk about, but besides playoffs,
Oof.
like it was just a bad split, right? And he's a legend, so it can happen to 6-8. So I think he's been an upgrade, but the problem is that like the other rosters above him are either more solid or just like have more firepower, even if they're not more consistent. So I think they're still like bottom of the playoffs. Like they won't get into the double elimination bracket, which is top six, I believe. Seventh and eighth do not get a second life. So I don't think that I haven't changed them up by much.
Yeah, I don't really have any changed opinions. I think they're kind of mediocre.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty mediocre. And honestly, I'm not even gonna talk about Dig. They're also pretty mediocre. I mean, they beat Immortals pretty fashionably. But
I feel so bad for
did you want to talk
River.
about Dig?
I feel so bad for River.
Yeah.
He's one of the best junglers in the league, and he just has no team.
Yes, no
Dude,
team.
I was
He
so
really
tilted
doesn't.
watching Neo because Biofrost is doing all right. I think Biofrost is fine, but he's Biofrost
Mhm.
is pulling the wave out of tower so Neo can freeze the wave, and they're playing Lucian Nami. So if you ever step up to
Yeah.
this wave, you are going to lose 60% of your HP, and then Neo just takes the minions right back into tower. I don't
Yeah.
know how you messed that up. Like he completely griefed his own laning phase, and he does it so many times. He was good, and he just fell into the classic NA trap. Like good first year, and then or good first split, and then he's just yeah, I don't know. I'm so
I
off the
yeah.
Neo train. I hope for Rivers' sake next year he makes it to a better team.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I actually noticed this in and CLG especially is that I actually noticed them. They always catch the wave and force a freeze, then attempt to force a freeze. And that's just the correct way to play the game, right? But the amount of times that like people just happily carefree bounce the wave back and forth, it considering we're in 2022 League of Legends, I feel like it should really stop. You should stop just AFK bouncing the wave. I get it if you need somewhere to go or you can't tank the wave because it does too much damage, but I mean, most of the times people are just brain dead. Let me just bounce the wave back. So I like that CLG. It felt like they were forcing freezes every single lane all the time, which was pretty cool to see. I mean, I think most top teams do it too, but I noticing it in CLG as a bottom tier team, usually it was pretty cool. All right, so now I think we can just kind of go into like maybe some draft ideas, some comp ideas. We saw a second week meta evolution, right? So this is the same patch 12.11 that was played last week. But
Mm-hmm.
the meta was very different, and I think in some ways for the better, in some ways for the worst. So I'm going to highlight a few things. So last week, Ari was a really big pick. It got picked a lot, and it got banned a couple times. This week, I think it only got picked once by Takui when they got Wukong, so they're just doing that Ari Wukong. Um, but basically, completely dropped out the presence, so I'm glad that happened. I think that was probably the right move when there are just better champions that you can play. Um, and then banning Wukong. Finally, players are not letting Wukong go through. I thought that was the most egregious thing ever to just give the opponent Wukong when it was up or not first pick it. And then the last thing I want to tack on is the return of Volibear. I want to give you guys a fun stat. Volibear is 0-6 in LCS this split. And it kind of makes sense because this is a champion that does not seem like it would do well post durability update, considering it's a champion that's completely based on early game dives and ganks, completely based on dealing damage based on base stats, and it doesn't actually build damage items. Um, yeah, I'm kind of glad that Volibear went 0-6. Team should not be picking it, right? We saw TL, we saw 100 Thieves, we saw TSM all pick it. I think one other team picked it and lost with it, but yeah, so um, those are the three things that I think were interesting. Ari, Wukong, Volibear. What are you guys' thoughts? You guys can talk about those or your own sort of meta ideas.
Yeah. Volley hasn't won a game in Korea. It was 0-4. I think it was like 0-1 in China as well. I can see the idea. In my mind, it's actually probably a little better because like if towers are doing more damage, the only character who doesn't give a crap about like nothing has changed really for that is Volibear in a sense. So in that sense, I could see the idea. I'm sure it's a good character in scrims too because he's just traditionally pretty good in early game, and that's just how scrims work. Like that's why Callista's being played. That's why all this crap like Bard is being played. Like you can just have some really fun and cool games with early game characters and scrims. One thing I wanted to highlight: Swain did have a slight uptick. I think Swain is just good. I'm still kind of baffled why it's not picked ban every game, or not at least in more games, right? Obviously, some players just can't play Swain for some reason. And in my mind, like it's not that hard. I mean, sure,
champion.
there's like some tricks to it, but like he's durable. He has a lot of time to make decisions. Pretty easy. Like Swain did like help win that TL game when they were behind. Like I don't think Bjergsen played amazingly up till then, but you know when you have a Swain and everyone's inted Baron debuff magic resist shredded, Swain's really good. So I'd like to see more of that. I think that the teams that do play will be rewarded, and it's pretty popular elsewhere. One last thought I want to leave on is like I think teams played a little bit more aggressive this week in terms of just like okay, mixed bag, but I do think I saw more like things being tried. Even 100 Things was tried stuff. It was terrible, but they were trying to push pace. So hopefully that's just a trend and not just a blip on the radar, and everyone's just going to go back to being safe and LCK. Like, okay, that's kind of mean to LCK. Some of the LCK games were okay and actually pretty good pace. It's just some of the most egregious offenders are the LCK. So that's why I'm calling them out. I don't want to see a zero quirky every other game though. I hope that just gets nerfed or dies.
Those two champions need to be reworked, in my opinion. Not like a full scale
Yep.
rework, but like the uninteractivity of Corky just clearing the wave and then ulting you from half the screen for all of your HP needs to go away. I think Azir, the fact that he builds just poke for so much is that's just not what the champion's supposed to be about. He's supposed to be about DPS, right? So, yeah. All right. Any thoughts, Alistair, on some of the champs we
So
talked about?
I do have one thing to say about Swain. I do think he is slightly overrated. I think he's very strong, but I think if you're gonna pick him, he has to be really late in the draft because he's very situational. And the part that like at this level, teams are good enough to just walk away from him when he hits R, and then he's just kind of like not a champ. It's like Swain without ult is like Twitch without ult. It doesn't like, you're not that scared of him, and especially the other thing that hard counters him is just a lot of DPS and range. Like those are the things that really screw over Swain. So I do think Swain's very good, though I do think you have to pick him in the right circumstance for him to be very good. Which, to be fair, I think that's how champions should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the case of Ahri, Ahri's still really strong. There's just other options. I also think that they don't really. I don't actually know how the Ahri Corki or Ahri Azir lanes go, so I can't really speak on that. Wukong, delete. He should not get 4 ultimates. That just shouldn't be a thing.
He's the most busted champion.
It also doesn't help that Death Stance and Red Smite and Ninja Tabbies and Mav Melmordius can all be stacked on the same champion. And Sunder as well.
I remember when there were you couldn't stack two of the like the health tanky plus the MR tanky couldn't be stacked, which was Sterex and Ma, or in this case Omni damage tankiness plus an MR tankiness
and Ninja Tabby as well,
and they work really well.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
Yeah, guys.
Volibear, he's still strong in solo queue, but I'm glad that he's maybe if people stop playing him pro, I don't have to go point and click in solo queue as much.
Yeah.
And what was the last one that was
Volibear's
mentioned? Last champion.
Those are the only ones I had. I think
we just talked about Corki.
Oh yeah, Corki should not be able to build what he's allowed to build and do what he does. That's just not fair.
Rework.
It's just not balanced.
Rework. Yep. I totally agree. I think that the 80 carry meta is interesting. I mean, obviously, so every patch has been freaking massive that Riot has released, right? So 12.12 is going to hit next weekend, and I mean, we get on average 5 80 carry bands in the first phase, and then the 80 carry is usually first picked. So I mean, I get that it is a bot lane centric meta. It makes sense when you make everybody tankier, right? It makes sense when you prolong the game state that 80 carries would be more influential. But 5 80 carry bands in the first phase into teams first picking an 80 carry seems a little excessive. So definitely need some tuning in that area in terms of balance. So I would like to see that. I want to briefly talk about the Seraphine Karma bot lanes we've been seeing.
Seraphine's so broken.
Because Alistair, yes, we know Seraphine's very broken. Alistair, you're finally here to talk about it. Our time on Lotus White when we were the Seraphine bot lane abusers. Yeah, we kind of know how it's done, right? And we won't talk about CLG who did it right. We will talk about TSM who did it completely wrong. Oh my goodness. They drafted Seraphine Karma. All right, this is fine. You're into Senna, right? Okay, interesting. Golden Guardians had a big brain pick of picking Mundo bot. I thought that was brilliant. That's a great counter into the Seraphine Karma stuff. But they picked it early enough where TSM could have pivoted, right? And they rounded their top side up with Gnar, Volibear, Yasuo. Are you guys sensing a profound amount of synergy in those three? Because I really cannot find a single reason to pair those three together. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Seraphine Karma? We don't have to go into that specific TSM draft. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all like, yeah, blind pick or counter picking Fiora with an R5 Gnar not really the move, Hooney. I don't think anybody was really excited about that one, and or nor surprised when you got completely stomped in like a 1v2 situation. So, what are you guys' thoughts on Seraphine Karma? I mean, she's getting buffed next patch. She's literally getting buffed next patch. So,
I,
is it Seraphine
I,
meta?
Yes. Short answer, yes.
so the way, yeah, I mean, it's the Seraphine meta. The way Seraphine's kit works, if you don't know, is all of her abilities work even better when she's surrounded by people in a death ball. She has a heal that literally takes the number of people next to her, multiplies that number to like basically 5% missing health heal times the number of people next to you when you cast the ability. I'm just like, why? And she's not hard to play. Honestly, she's not even that squishy in lane. Honestly, people say like, "Oh, just kill her," which you can, but it's not that easy. I think that it should be removed. That playstyle, like Seraphine, has always been extremely busted. This is like her state after lots of tuning, nerfs, and like slight buffs and stuff, and she's just fundamentally not okay, especially in a meta where she gets 300 more health. All the durability stuff like benefits are so much more than anyone else. Like she's just better Sona, and then Sona was always the meme of being a cannon minion in terms of tankiness. Now she's like a lot tankier just by nature. So I think it's disgusting, and more importantly, there's not enough skill expression involved to even get to that result.
Yeah, she's very easy to play.
So, what I'll say about Seraphine personally is I think her interactions with other spells needs to just be removed. Especially when it comes to her W. Her E is kind of okay. It's not as egregious, but her kit only has so much like skill definition. It's hitting long ultimates and then using your E and like managing your passives, your E and W. But the thing is, your W, you don't need to use your W on your Echo if you have someone else who's shielding you on your team. You can literally just, even if it's just Karma, Karma can shield you, and if you're already shielded, you're going to heal your entire team. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with E. If you
Yeah.
just slow someone, you're going to get a root. If they're already rooted, you're going to get a stun. That's not okay.
Oh, I didn't know that that's how the stun worked. I always knew how the root worked. I didn't know that she had a stun
Yeah.
in a line
Yeah.
stun like that. What?
Okay, I didn't know that either. I've played so much Seraphine.
Why does it have a tier 3 condition? I have only ever achieved the tier 2s because I just set it up myself.
I did not know that.
Oh no,
Wait, that's so
that's
crazy.
so dumb.
I could be
What?
wrong,
Okay,
but I
look
don't
this
think
up.
I am.
Oh, no, you're right.
I thought
you're
so.
right. Oh,
my-
God. That
Dude,
is
Seraphine
terrible.
is the fine print character, okay? It's just like she's kind of bad, and then like she's kind of like annoying, right? And then you read more, you're like, wait, how's that allowed in one
Yeah,
character?
no,
And then
it's
you
not-
look at Sona.
Unfortunately, my coach has made
it's
me
not
play a lot
even
of Seraphine
rooted.
recently, so
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
it's not even
so you're a
rooted.
Seraphine abuser.
not in solo
It's
queue.
any hard CC turns it into more
Yeah,
CC.
pretty much.
So if you're rooted,
just like
if you're
another stun layered.
if you're stunned,
What?
or if you're grounded. So if you're grounded by Cassiopeia, it turns into a stun
Yep.
also. That is crazy. Holy cow. And now it got increased to 1.5 seconds in the next patch. So I think if you're not picking Seraphine, especially with some pretty fat Lucian buffs, or nerfs, I mean, fat Lucian nerfs, I feel like everybody should be picking Seraphine next weekend. So, yeah. Seraphine,
Agreed.
I mean, to Riot's credit, the game is still being balanced, and they're making massive patches every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when you do stuff like buff Seraphine in her current state, it does feel like they buff champions just to be like, hey, remember this champion? Play this champion. But it was already broken. It was already too strong. So I kind of, I mean, I get why they do it. It's just unfortunate that the consequences are we might get a week or two of just some really unbalanced play. I mean, we've already kind of been seeing it with Senna, right? I mean, she's still not getting nerfed. We've been seeing it with GP, still not getting nerfed. So a lot of crazy champions out there. Let's see. Yeah. So what else we got here? Mitchell on the hosting duties is finding trouble knowing where to go next with the podcast. How far in are we? All right, League Dad, you can edit this out or keep it in if you find it entertaining.
I think we're in a good pace because it was a slower week and everything. I will say there is Nyla. She was released.
Right.
Her abilities were released, and I mean I think it's worth talking about. But other than that, this is a weird week where there wasn't that much drama in the community, which for the podcast, maybe not a good thing, but for the mental health of the community, probably a good thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, we could just talk about the next patch. That was such an easy segue that I just forgot because we were already talking about it. But yeah, next patch is 12.12. We will be seeing it in action next weekend. So our lovely pros are gonna be playing it. Any shout outs? Anything you guys wanna bring out on this patch? If not, I have some stuff I can bring out.
I don't have a major shout out specifically, but there will be a hotfix patch to it afterward, which is 12.12b, which has already been previewed. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're just patching like aggressively and trying to continue to make changes, but some of the characters that need it still aren't getting it.
Yes, the main thing I want to mention is so we're already talking about how broken Seraphine is. Wait until we get to play. Wait until you get to watch Seraphine and Amumu played together in the bot lane.
Ooh, is that a
That's
real
a real
thing?
thing.
Holy cow! I've never even heard or
I
thought of
don't want
that.
to conceive that. That sounds like some kind of sadist comp.
Oh my god, this just sounds like I don't know, like the classic old Amumu MF dream, except Seraphine brings CC instead.
And does bonus
Holy.
damage because of Amumu's passive.
Oh yeah, the magic
Yep.
shred, huh? Okay, interesting. Some fun synergies. Yeah, not cool, man. Not cool.
That's not how I would describe that, but you know.
Seraphine Amumu. Yeah, so Amumu, for our viewers, got a massive buff in his Q mana cost. Honestly, just ridiculous. It went from 70 to 30 level 1, which is that's just ridiculous. That's
It's
like
just
that's like
free at
so
that
much
point,
We also
mana.
might
basically.
see
Yeah, that is so much
the
free
other
mana.
Amumu lane is Amumu Senna will probably be a thing.
Yeah, okay, I could see that. I could just see Amumu support. So last year at Worlds, Amumu got the change to get 2 bandage tosses. He could kind of hold one in as a charged up or whatever. I don't know. And we saw Amumu a little bit in the play-ins for a Worlds, but then he completely fell out of meta, right? And the main issue he had was if he misses a Q and he doesn't get to chain CC, he's just out of mana. He's He can't use his other abilities, right? I think in laning phase he had 4 Qs, and then he was out of mana. Maybe it was 3, but that's pretty rough. So this is just a total game changer. So support of
Yeah.
Mumu. Um, honestly, Jungle Mumu is still pretty crap tier. He clears very slowly, like so slowly. His first clear is terrible. His second clear is also terrible because you still don't have bombies. So until you get your bombies, Mumu is not really a jungle champion.
It
But
feels
yeah,
like they've just patched him out of being a jungler. Like his clear is just garbage. For like his kit supposedly should destroy jungle camps, but it doesn't really. It's
yeah.
slower than so many characters that aren't meant to be junglers.
Yeah, his jungle clear scales really well, as in he gets to a point where he just one shots camps, which is like kind of the opposite of other champions. Like other champions, they clear really well early on, and then they stop clearing well. Later on, like Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, even Viego to an extent, they stop clearing the camps so well as the game goes on. But a Mumu, opposite, and that's just not viable for any sort of competitive League of Legends, even in solo queue, right? You only see a Mumu in low elo because, well, it's just so easy to take advantage of him. Any other
Mm-hmm.
champions that we'd want to talk about? I have a couple that we could just briefly mention, but I'll let you guys go first.
I don't think she'll show up, but Velvet being nerfed is kind of funny to me, considering I don't. From my experience playing against her, like yeah, she could be snowbally, but like in a pro level, she's definitely not. In my mind, she's not there yet. I might be proven wrong if they do some degenerate build I haven't seen before, but I just don't think she's there yet, and she's getting nerfed pretty quickly out the gate, which is slightly uncommon for new characters, honestly. Usually, those characters get to be Giga Buster for a good amount of time, so maybe there's just a lot of reports at the low elo that like people are just upset and it's ruining low elo games, which do matter, by the way. Like
Yeah,
these people are playing your game,
they're the
and there
majority
are
of
a
the
lot
player
of them.
base. Yeah,
They're
pretty much.
more than the majority. Yeah,
Yeah,
like was it more than half of players don't play ranked ever or something like that, or at all, or almost ever. So like, a lot of people out there playing the game who pay a lot of money to have fun and not get destroyed by Belveth and low elo.
yeah.
I think
Go
I think the biggest change of any champ is Jarvan. If you want to be
Yeah,
honest,
big change.
those buffs are nuts.
Yeah, those buffs were big. They're going to increase his clear speed in the like mid stages of the game by a lot, and they're increase his DPS and damage. Especially, I mean, you talk about lockdown, right? J4, Seraphine, Amumu, put that all in a game. You're not having fun if you're an AD carry. You're not having fun if you're a mid lane mage, right? So, I think we could see some J4. He doesn't really fit into the meta right now because there's so many champions that can actually get out of his ultimate. Corki, Azir, Ezreal, Lucian, Zeri. So Senna, TK, right? TK can spit her out and W out and stuff like that. So there are not a lot of champions that really fit the J4 meta, but I mean, there's still always room to find J4 if there are enough jungle bans. Um, Guys, Viego did get a nerf. It's not a big nerf. I think it looks like there's a lot of nerfs on it. I will say that as a common Viego player, um, yeah, the nerfs don't do much except the WE interaction. So I can explain for those of you guys who don't know. If you press W and you charge your stun and you press E almost immediately right after, you'll see Viego start charging his stun for a split second, and then he'll go into camouflage, and you can finish charging his stun in camouflage. So this is actually it's pretty niche, but when it does happen, the counterplay is very low. So the the strongest thing is to flash stun out of it, right? So you know Viego's charging his W, but you don't know if he's actually going to go flash W on you because you don't know how he's positioning and how close he is. And it makes for a very uninteractive playstyle where you just have to kind of run away if you're like a mage or an AD carry, because you don't want to get flash stunned on from fog. So I'm glad that they're removing it because it's a pretty dumb mechanic, right? They literally made it in the game so that when you're charging your W stun, you're not in camouflage, but then there's this one interaction that allows you to do it. So I'm glad that they're removing that. It will change, I think, how players see Viego because right now, he's not supposed to be a champion that can engage and just jump into fights and jump on top of squishies in the middle of a 5v5 team fight, right? He's supposed to be a cleanup melee carry that has to take risks to deal damage. But right now he's just building tanky, right? He's going Sunderer or Kraken, but then he's going straight into Dead Man's Plate for some reason or Force of Nature, so that he can just be this pseudo sort of frontline pseudo engage and then just reset. But taking this mechanic out is going to make it so that, I mean, a good chunk of his engages are not going to be as good, which I'm really glad to see. So maybe players will start to realize that, hey, Viego's still broken, but you got to kind of like build a comp around him a bit more to make him better. Otherwise, he kind of just falls under the pseudo, like you're just like a random Xin Zhao or Lee Sin or Volibear, right? So I think that's a better change overall. Champ's still broken. We're still gonna see a lot of him. We're gonna see a lot of bans. Um, and then I wanted to touch on Lucian. Obviously, got nerfed to base AD, nerfing to his Q damage. They're pretty big, I think. But Alistair, what are your thoughts? Your person who obviously is plays a lot of AD carry.
Yeah, I think the nerfs they're pretty big, but I don't think they're definitely not enough to take him out of meta. He's still going to be very high prio, in my opinion. I could be wrong. We'll have to see what happens, but the 280 is pretty big, especially for an early game champion like Lucian. But I think if you want to nerf Lucian Nami, you have to nerf the Nami. Because the only time you're ever picking Lucian is with Nami. Because that's the big issue is the interaction between those two. So maybe you have to nerf Electrocute, like the base Electrocute damage. Maybe you have to nerf Nami's E.
I think nerfing the interaction that allows Electrocute to proc off of damage that the Lucian's doing.
Yeah,
right. I get
something
that the
like
E's
that.
attached to Lucian, but that just
because
doesn't
the
make
issue
sense.
isn't
Yeah,
Lucian.
that
The
works
issue
like
is
that.
Lucian Nami combined. So
Yeah, I agree. Interesting take. Yep, I can agree with that. Obviously the Q is the ability he maxed first. He losing 20 base damage on an early game champion is a pretty big deal. And then we are seeing Nerfs to Zeri and Yumi, also pretty high prio meta champions right now. I don't know. I mean, 40 heal off of Yumi's E, which I'm pretty sure she maxes first. I could be wrong. Maybe Yumi's max Q, but I think Yumi's max E first. So losing 40 HP, but gaining 5% move speed on it is a pretty interesting change. I don't know. Maybe Hecarim comes back. You just speed him up a bit more. But what are you guys' thoughts on Zeri and Yumi? Because these are that's a premier lane, two of our most picked champions right now in the game.
I think Yumi will never be like okay until they nerf that W. Like I think it's the dumbest thing, one of the dumbest single passives in the game, where you can give like 100 plus AP or like 60 plus AD for attaching. For attaching to someone who has a high AD or AP. I think that's just dumb as crap. So yes, nerfing the heal is fine. Like it will ding her. You'll probably be able to punish her more, especially if you were the type to max it first. However, all that being said, she's still super playable. I think she was always playable, even or not always, but I think she was playable for a while. Now it's just like I think pro players do have some ego or some pride, and they don't like picking Yumi unless they really have to. And it's like uber broken. For Zeri, I think she was giga busted before, in my opinion, just because of I don't know what adventure they went on for that W change, but it was dumb as crap for a long time. They've been nerfing it, by the way, so like it's not like they haven't touched it, and they're touching it again on this patch, right? They're decreasing the damage across the board for it. In terms of ratios for AD and AP, they're dinging AD more than AP, which is a big deal. And they're also taking its base damage down by 10. So like all of that does go a while.
They increased base damage by 10 actually, to compensate.
Oh yeah. Sorry, you're right. You're absolutely correct. But I think she's still playable just because of that mobility. I think mobility is just oft downplayed. Like people just can't feel it, right? It's like how I make fun of Clown Dragon. Like it's not actually terrible, but it feels terrible. But
I think
mobility
it's
is
actually
just
terrible. But we could go into that after.
yeah. I keep getting told win rates, and I'm like, well, I still think that if you have an ocean or not even ocean, a mountain or infernal in a lot of these situations, you auto win. I think Cloud should just be like banned in pro play. I'm sick of watching teams get soul and then look like they get punished because the other team gets elder.
Or in EG's case, because Dragon Soul accumulates so much into gold bounties that EG's just picking up free bounties left and right with only being like 1.5k behind, or I think they were ahead in gold.
There were teams who were getting gold while ahead, getting gold bounties while ahead like 1k plus, and I'm just like, this is nonsense.
It's because Dragon Soul
should be a hard stop on the bounty system.
Yeah,
the second you are ahead in gold, it turns up. I don't give a crap if they have 7 dragons. I don't care where those came from. It's not worth that much. It really isn't. Yeah. It's so nonsense.
All right, bit of a tangent. What are your thoughts on Zeri Yumi, Alistair?
Honestly, I don't like to think about Yumi. I don't like to acknowledge the champion's existence. Honestly, if you want my personal opinion, I think the biggest thing they need to change about Yumi is the fact that she can take 2 combat summoners. I think the fact that she can take Ignite Exhaust is extremely overrated or underrated.
Yeah, it's very strong. It makes
well, the biggest problem is she could do all the things we hate about her all in one kit.
Yeah, she is completely uninteractive. She heals for way too much. She gives way too much stats. Her poke is borderline undodgeable because she's playing a point-and-click adventure game. She's playing Snake IO. Like Slither IO with her Q. She has one skill shot that's not even a skill shot. Like her passive is Xerath passive, but better. Her auto attack range is way too long. She doesn't have a cooldown on her W. Yeah. Like there's so much they need to address or could address, and I don't think anything that they're doing is actually like what they have to do to like make the champion healthy for the game.
Also, her ultimate is literally always up. Her ultimate is always up. It's so frustrating thinking that you might have an avenue to engage onto a Yumi attached player, and then her ultimate's still up again, and you're like, oh my god, dude, I'm getting rooted and damaged, and
it's too wide, and it does way too much for like what it is. It's so easy to do. Like you could just point out almost every part of her kit. Like her shield doesn't wear out.
It never goes off.
And you just put the shield up. There's no other shield interaction in the game
No, Rakan.
besides what?
Rakan doesn't ever wear off either. Yeah.
But his shield. Okay, that's true. But his shield's tiny as hell.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But you're right. So it's the
Yeah.
second one, but it's a shield you can put on someone else that never wears out, and it's. I think she should just blow up if she gets interrupted on her way to someone else. Like if she gets like stunned or something on the way, she should just die. Kind of like Jigglypuff and Smash when you break their shield. There just needs to be a punishment for that.
You just
spawn
die
of
instantly.
Satan.
Yeah, I'd be down. What if she just got? What if she gets to keep everything, but if she ever takes, she gets one hit KO'd by anything if she ever unattaches. That would just be hilarious. I would love that. If you ever get one unattached, one hit KO, a single caster
you buff
million, you leave die.
You get full mana and full like a 3 times bigger shield if you auto attack, which is her passive right now.
Yeah.
But if you get autoed, you die.
You die instantly. That would be so funny. I would love that. Just see
Oh,
cats
I would love
pop
that.
over and over again. Please, Riot. Please watch this podcast and consider our suggestion very heavily. But yeah, I mean, so we saw Viego get nerfed, right? We saw Fiora get nerfed. I mean, the Fiora nerf it's okay. It's not bad. I mean, I think if you do max vital procs like through an ultimate, it's like anywhere from like 5 to like 8% of someone's max health, depending how much AD you have at that point of the game, which can be a lot. But Fiora is so unbelievably broken, I don't think it'll actually matter that much. And then we saw some changes to Ivern, to Janna. I mean, if you're an LS lover, I guess you could be like, yeah, Ivern buffs, get him in there. But I just don't think pros are ever going to play him. I actually think Ivern has always been a good champion if you can learn how to play him. Shout outs to Zongi, but I just no one wants to play Ivern for some reason because he's so unique of a champion. But any last thoughts we want to touch on? We can. Sorry, I wanted to say this. I was thinking about it. There are Yorick buffs, and these Yorick buffs are actually quite interesting. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because we do have Dokla in the scene, the original OG Yorick player for the LCS. How awesome would it be to see Dokla bust out the Yorick, right? They have maybe a 1-4 comp that is just designed around playing Yorick. I mean, Yorick's got some okay matchups into a couple of champions. So if those champions come out, you
hesitated for a moment there, but yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of his good matchups. I was just like,
I don't know how many meta matchups is good into, but honestly, it has the factor of like you're just not used to playing against it. So
you're not used to playing against it. The ghouls are healthier and they move faster, so they're gonna do more damage. And I think the maiden AI got improved. So
yeah,
I mean, who knows?
Allegedly,
right? So like, let's say CLG. I mean, they're facing a Fiora ban and a I don't know what else does Dokla play, a Gwen ban or something, and then they're like, we need a split pusher. Let's just bring out the Yorick. So that could be cool. But yeah, I mean, that's all we really got for today. I mean, I think we're missing an entire section of like TSM Copium from League Dad not being here. Because none of us are actual TSM fans in any means, and League Dad's not here to represent. So, any last thoughts, guys? Anything we want to talk about?
Not from me.
Not for you.
When Nyla gets released, we'll have a discussion on it. We'll have a breakdown, but she's disgusting so far. Just that kit, I look at it, I'm like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And a bigger topic on that is let's just stop having passives like 3x passives on all your active abilities. Like, dude, we still have Jax in the game. He's sitting here crying in the club. Like, he's just trying to play the game, and everyone else has got like 10 abilities.
Yeah, I love it. You look at Nasus's passive, it's just
Nasus passive's broken. Get the hell out of here.
All right,
well, at least it's on his
sentence.
passive, right? It's not his Q passive and his W passive and his E passive. Like, I'm just sick of seeing all those like extra credit like abilities. I'm like,
all right,
just have an ability.
I mean, Fizz passive, right? He takes flat.
Bro, Sivir's passive.
It's just like so. Sivir's passive. You gain 20 move speed when you hit an ability or auto. Yeah, it's just some of these champions have the like literally a sentence or two passive, and then you have stuff like Senna, Zeri, Callista with
This is
like
why I
full
appreciate
SA.
Lilia as of the recent characters. She's super easy to understand. She is strong right now, by the way. She's pretty busted.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that she's like the most straightforward recent character design, I feel like, in my head at least.
You know, we should see more Lilia, honestly. With how the meta is and how much full clearing there is, like you could just run circles around half the meta champions, right? If you're playing
Scales well, can be tanky,
yep, Scales,
snowballs well,
Tanky,
clears fine.
CC, you have so many build options to basically answer the enemy team comp, right? You're one of the few viable AP junglers. Almost every jungler right now is an AD, right? There's like what Wukong,
Besides
Viego's,
Diana.
Xin Zhao, and then now we're seeing Volibear. But like, I mean, all those champions, right? Lilia just runs circles around them in terms of clear speed. So yeah, I think we should definitely see more Lilia.
Oh, I see
Also,
what you mean, because she does the circles and she runs
yes,
nice.
yes, thank
Good.
you, thank you. I try. Yeah, but this weekend should be hype. We have some matchups that we could get into, but you know what? All right, let's just bring out one interesting matchup. Okay, we have what matchup do we want to talk
C9
about, guys?
CLG.
Oh yeah, CLG, C9 CLG. All right, who's winning? I think some of us may have already said it. Maybe we can go a little bit more in depth. Like, is this a stomp? Is it a close game? Which lane is winning? Right? What do we think? What are they picking? What's going on in this matchup? And then we can call it a day. Nice
Yeah,
hour and a half
I'm not as
podcast.
invested, so I'll go first. I think C9 will win. The strength of CLG, I mean, Dokla has looked good, but CLG usually wins through bot lane in my head, and like Berserker's just so much better that I don't think they'll get their advantages there like they usually would like to. So yeah, I've got them winning.
I
Fair.
completely agree. I think it's gonna be C9 just kind of running them, to be honest.
All right,
Yeah.
fair enough. I am the local C9 stan. Honestly, I was a pretty big fan of theirs last split. But you know what? I'm feeling CLG. I feel
You
like
are?
I kind of am. You know, I actually think that they're peaking right now, and they're gonna fall off
Uh-huh.
at the end of the split. But Cloud9 is at their most
Oh.
vulnerable, and I'm okay with betting on CLG right now. By God, no means later in the split am I ever gonna vote this way. But right now, I think CLG has a chance. They're at their best. C9 is possibly at their worst. Um, so I think CLG can take it. I mean, honestly, dude, Palafaker had a great game against Jojo Pune. That guy was smacking him in lane repeatedly on the Silas. I mean, it's a very one-sided matchup. It's very Silas favored, but
Yes,
still,
but he got it done, right?
he got it
So
done. He smacked him over and over again. He's burning flashes. He's coordinating. Contracts is in that rare phase where he's not inting, and this is where you bet on the contract stocks, right? He is
oh
the,
god.
the, the head size of contracts. Dokla, I mean, he just gapped the crap out of Impact, right? He mind controlled Impact to build Archangel's staff for some reason, so that was great stuff. And then finally, you know, the bot lane, they're just so incredibly diverse. They can pick enchanters, they can pick the meta carries like Senna and Zeri and probably Lucian, even though it's always banned. So I've got some
Mm-hmm.
faith. I got some faith. You know what? Jensen is notorious for just picking Yone and just saying, screw it, I'm going to try and jump in and win laning phase. So as long as it's not Abadage on the other side, you know, maybe Yone might actually lose a lane in competitive play because it's actually so easy to beat Yone in competitive. You just camp his ass, right, with the real champions. But you had a Zir Volibear, so you kind of just lose, right? So yeah, that's gonna do it for us at the All In Podcast. Go CLG, go TSM. The old guards are back. Just kidding, but not really.
If
Try not to
CLG
be too
wins, does that make
toxic.
him number one? Oh my
Yes, please
god. Oh.
bring us to the timeline where CLG is the best team. You know what, CLG Alistair, you got your future hard cut out for you because Luger's looking pretty damn good. All right, so we'll see if it goes well. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, Luke Dad will be back. Try not to be too toxic, and play League of Legends, and be good. All In Podcast. Woo!